Hey guys, my name is Julia. I'm one of your teen services librarians over at the main library on Goodwood. This week we are totally stranded because we're going to be playing with DNA. We're going to extract our DNA and be able to see it. We're also going to make a double helix bracelet. As always, supplies that accompany this video are available at the main library in a limited capacity. Alright, so this week we're going to shake things up and talk about the science of DNA before we get started, and that's just so we know what we're doing. So DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and it exists in almost every life form on our planet. And what DNA does is it carries the genetic instructions of an organism. So DNA exists in every single one of your cells, it replicates there, and it tells each one of your cells how to behave. DNA has everything that basically makes you, your sex, your height, your hair texture, what your nose looks like, whether or not your earlobes are connected, you name it. DNA was discovered to be a thing back in 1869 by the Swiss physician Friedrich Miescher. It wasn't until 1953 though that we actually discovered what DNA looks like, and that's when the scientists James Watson and Francis Crick actually published a paper detailing that. It's important to note though that the scientist Rosalind Franklin had also come to this conclusion at pretty much the same time. She was just beaten in the paper publishing process. What we discovered DNA looks like though is called a double helix or two spirals, and it's basically like if you had a ladder and then you took the bottom and the top halves and you twisted them in opposite directions. It's kind of beautiful, and we are still learning new things about this brilliant little Lego block of life every single day. Okay, so let's talk about how you can see your DNA. To be clear, you're not going to see your personalized double helix today. If you want to do that, you're going to need an electron microscope, which is just a little bit outside of the library's budget. What you will see is several strands of your DNA clumped together, which is still pretty neat. So to extract your DNA, you will need 3 cups, a pipette of food coloring, a pipette of dish soap, isopropyl alcohol, salt, a craft stick, and some warm water. To get started, you're going to go ahead and just take your salt and pour it in to one of your cups. And then you want to go ahead and get some warm water. I'm going to just heat mine up a little bit in the kettle. And you don't want to get this boiling because you will need to drink some of this. And I'm going to go ahead and pour it in a little over half full. Right. Once you've got your water in there, you want to go ahead and just stir it with your craft stick until all of the salt is dissolved. What you want to do next is going to feel a little bit weird. You want to take a big gulp of this and you want to gargle it and swish it around in your mouth. It's going to be very salty. I'm going to warn you about that. So bottoms up. The longer you swish your salt water around, the more cheek and saliva cells you're going to pull out. So you want to try to do as long as you can. But when you've had enough, you go ahead and spit it in another cup. And you're going to want to take a good drink of regular water after this because your mouth is going to be really salty. What you want to do next is take your pipette of dish soap, and you can either peel off the hot glue covering on it or cut it off. And you want to go ahead and squeeze dish soap in there. Once the dish soap is in, you want to go ahead and use your craft stick, stir that around. The dish soap is going to break down the cell walls that you spit out into this cup. While you're doing that, you want to go ahead and pour your isopropyl alcohol into your 3rd cup. And you want to add some food coloring to that. And you can either, peel or cut the tip off your pipette. When you're adding the food coloring, I know it's tempting to want to squeeze the whole thing in, but I would not recommend doing that. Instead, try to just squeeze 1 drop in. If you get this very dark, you won't be able to see your DNA at the end. Once you've got it in, you can just swish the cup around to get it all mixed in. And then you want to go ahead and hold your spit cup at an angle and very slowly pour your alcohol into the cup. The alcohol is less dense than the water, and it's going to float a little bit on top of it, and it will be able to hold the DNA in it. What you want to do next is you just want to sit and wait for about 4 minutes. So it's been just over 4 minutes, and you can see these white strands in there. That is DNA. And you can turn it and look at it. It will hold it in the alcohol for a few days like this before it all collapses to the bottom. Okay, so now it's craft time. To make a double helix bracelet, you will need 20 inches of 550 paracord and then 2 pieces of wax cotton. One is going to measure about 300 centimeters, the other is going to measure 50. You also need a piece of tape. Before we get started, let me tell you that paracord frays something fierce. If you look at the ends of yours, you can see that I've already melted it before we send it out. If at any time you need to cut the ends of this, either tie it off in a knot or get an adult to help you melt the ends. So to get started, we're going to take our paracord and find where the pin mark is on it. So it should be about 10 centimeters in. And I would suggest using your tape just to tape it to the table. It's easier to do this when it's sitting still. And then you want to go ahead and take your 300 centimeters of wax cotton thread and unwind it. And you want to go and fold that in half. And then right at the halfway point, you want to loop that up in your paracord right about where the loop starts. And we're gonna just tie a bunch of the same knot over and over. So to get started, you wanna separate out your cords. And you want to loop the top one, bring it over, and then you want it over this second one, which you want to loop again, and then push through. And then you want to tie that good and tight. And we're just going to repeat that same knot, always moving from one side throughout the entire bracelet. As we work through this, you're going to find that the string, as we're knotting it, will naturally kind of curl around itself. So when you get to the side where you're pulling from is on the bottom, all you need to do is go ahead, take the tape up, and then just rotate it a little bit to put it on top. So once you either run out of thread or you get your double helix to a point where you like it and it fits around your wrist reasonably well, you want to go ahead and tie that last bit off as tight as you can, and then just trim the ends. All right, so next up, we're gonna go ahead and make a sliding knot so we can take the bracelet on and off our wrist. What we wanna do is we wanna kind of loop this paracord around like so. Set that in place. You wanna take your wax cotton thread and fold that in half. And you wanna take there at the midpoint and loop that into the paracord. And to get started, we're just going to tie kind of a simple knot, and then we're going to tie a couple of cobra knots so this will slide. So you want to take this piece, go over, and then under the next piece, and then we want to take that other one, loop it under both cords, and then through the top. And you don't want to pull this so tight because you want this to be able to move around your paracord. So you want to go ahead to tie the next knots, take it, bring it under, and then over, pull out that knot there, bring this piece through the loop. And you want to do the same thing from the other side now. once you have a few knots and you're confident with it, I would go ahead and just tie a little extra knot here on the end to keep it from fraying. Trim that off. And you want to be able to fit that on your wrist, slide it closed, and then see where you want that to be kind of in the middle. But then to take it off your wrist, you want to see how far out you need to slide things. What I would do is I would go ahead and tie off your paracord on the ends, just a regular knot, so you won't accidentally slide your sliding knot through it. And this one ended up being pretty much on the end. I'm not a huge fan of this dangly bit. I'm going to cut it off. If you have an adult with you who can help you melt the edges, I would recommend doing that, but don't try it yourself. All right, and there you go, double helix bracelet. If you have any questions or comments about today's activities, holler at us. Our phone number is 231-3770, or you can leave a comment on this video. Better yet, tag us on Instagram to show us what you made or discovered. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this, and I can't wait to see you next time.